Congratulations for making it through the online escape room. This video will not be quizzed on. It is really important to note that I did add my own little sprinkle of opinions throughout this presentation. However, this video is just fully for further enrichment on your learning, as well as a reflection on what I have learned throughout reading this professional learning advisory and making this whole online escape room. So we'll start by some activities or strategies to improve your teaching practice as an educator. I came up with starting the year by co-creating norms and expectations that go both ways. I mentioned this before. It is really important that you lay out your expectations for students and their expectations for you, which is why I said it would be great to co-create them so that you're both on the same page. I thought it really important to mention in these expectations and norms that respect, honesty, promptness, no crosstalk, productivity, and the difference between personal time outside the classroom and professional time inside the classroom were all really important things to note in terms of your norms and expectations. I think that if you lay all of these out for students, your relationship with them will be easier to build upon, and there will or should not be many blurred boundaries if you both know what is expected of each party. I also thought it a great idea to have possible check-ins with students, maybe give them the option of having an anonymous check-in or just like a little suggestion box type of thing in your classroom, whether it be online or in person. You could ask questions such as, do you think that I know enough about your learning style? Just so that you're able to tailor your teaching to their preference of learning. Is there anything that you want me to know about you? That I would say you could have the option of the anonymity, um, maybe in regards to the classroom, but if there's anything going on outside of the classroom, maybe have them put their name on it. You don't have to address them in front of the whole class, but that would kind of be a way to know where you're at with your students in terms of building your relationship and how comfortable they are with you, and just a nice way of keeping things professional. And lastly, I had the idea to ask the question, what can I do to improve my teaching practice? So if there's something that they're not necessarily comfortable with, you can find this out and adjust yourself as needed. Some other ways to maintain professional boundaries that were not mentioned in this learning advisory were to lock down your social media accounts. This is stressed to us in Teachers College. You should have a private account. You should not be posting anything that you don't want published everywhere and the entire world to know. For instance, I was a model as a teenager, and I had one of my colleagues actually say that they were creeping my Facebook. And they came up to me and said, I was creeping your Facebook. You look so cute when you were 15. And I was like, thank you. I really appreciate that. Now, I would not feel uncomfortable if one of my students came across these photos as I was 15, which was their age. They were able to see something about my life that I wouldn't necessarily share aloud, but having my Facebook locked down would prevent them from even seeing it in the first place. And the photos that I have shared on every one of my social media platforms are not something that I am ashamed of. I also had the idea to create office hours when students can reach you in person and online. In university, this is a common practice by professors to have on their syllabus an office hours and an office location so that students know when they can come and talk to you, when you are available, because our lives are just so busy. And students should know that they are able to reach you, but you still have a life outside of work, just like they have a life outside of school. I think having this boundary put in place and explained to your students will help them realize that you're not just someone who's trying to force information on them, but you're also someone who's trying to get through life just as they are. I think a point that falls under this office hours would be to tell students when you will be logging off in order to just stress the difference between your work life and your personal life. And then Another thing to note is you should always be reminding students of your co-created norms and expectations. You can do this by having your check-ins, but I think just these little reminders, for instance, if a student makes a comment in class that goes against the respect, the mutual respect between the teacher and the educator, you need to address that right away so that the boundaries are not continuously being pushed until it reaches a point of violation. So I thought critically about this advisory, and I realized that there was only a small consideration for social media in the professional boundaries advisory. So what happens if the student is no longer your student and they want to follow you on social media? I would say that this is okay, but a teacher should still refrain from developing more than a professional relationship with the student. And I also wouldn't necessarily accept this follow request if they are fresh out of high school or fresh out of your school. I would maybe wait until their frontal lobe has fully developed and they understand the difference completely between right and wrong. And then I also asked the question, what about rural implications? So if you're working in a small community of 1,000 people, let's say, and all of your family attends this school, all of your nieces, nephews, your kids, what happens in regards to social media and your personal life in terms of your professional like environment? Um, I had ensured or asked myself to ensure that this is taken into account when creating the classroom norms and expectations. You should mention that at school, you are their teacher, you are not their family, and at home, you are their family and you are not their teacher. I think you should talk to the student with whom you share a blurred familiar relationship with and ensure that the expectations are still applicable for them. And you should also ensure that your administration knows about these implications. I also noticed that this learning advisory has no suggestions on how to separate your work life from your personal life. So we know that teachers are teachers 24/7, 365, but what about their personal lives? We are still people. We still want to go out for drinks with our friends. We still want to go sauna and not be feeling uncomfortable in the attire we are in if a student happens to walk into the sauna at the same time. So I think that you should explain to students that you are friendly with them because you want them to succeed, but not because you are friends with them outside of school. You should always say that you appreciate their honesty, and in return, you should be honest and encouraging, but not every detail about someone's life should be shared, such as where you go to sauna, because you never know, students might follow you. Um, you should also explain that the student-teacher personal lives and privacy goes both ways. So I'll present you with a little case here. If a student was out with a group of friends and the teacher saw them, the teacher might wave to them from a distance. They would not engage. But if the teacher, I guess this boundary should be reflected on students as well. So if a student sees a teacher outside with their friends or their family, the student also should not walk up to the teacher and ask them what they're doing there, if they can hang out. The student should let the teacher enjoy their time away from the classroom because they have lives outside of the classroom, just like students do. Lastly, this advisory asks the most important question, I think, is how do you demonstrate appropriate concern for students? I personally think that it is really, really important to show a student that you care without coming off as unprofessional by putting their learning first. You have to always have the best interest for your student in terms of their learning. Yes, their mental health does or their learning does depend a lot on their mental health, but you also have to recognize that you are not their parent or guardian. You do not make the rules for them at home, and your professional relationship is just that, professional. So I hope you have enjoyed this online break room exercise, And I mean, you would have gotten all the questions right if you made it this far, so congratulations. And I hope that I was able to critically engage yourself as I was able to reflect on my learning throughout this learning advisory, and that you're able to take something more away from this presentation than just the information presented to you in the document.